Greetings, Magic players. This is Steve from Untapped Games, and today we're going to do something kind of very different. This is Conspiracy, which is the new set coming out on June 6th, rather, and it's a draft set, so it's not like a normal set. None of the cards in this set are going to be legal in the standard format. Nor will they be legal in Modern even. They will, I believe, be legal in Vintage and Legacy, but the purpose of the set is to draft. It's a special format. It's not even like normal drafts. So we're going to take a look at the cards, and I'll talk a little bit about the drafts on the way. You'll sort of gain a sense of what I'm talking about. The set, each card in it, the cards will interact not only in the normal Magic game, but they'll also start working, the mechanics to them will start working from the moment that you crack open a pack in draft. So it adds an extra layer of strategy. It's also strange, booster box setup here. When you play Conspiracy, you break off into pods as you usually do in draft, and you get 3 packs. You open the packs, one at a time, pass left, right, left, just like normal. But the difference being that after you're finished drafting, you actually will, you'll basically, depending on how large your pod was, so if you have a 6-person pod, you'll break off into 2 groups of 3, and if you have a 8-person pod, you'll have 2 groups of 4, and you'll actually do like little free-for-all tournaments with the stuff that you drafted. And the cards, as you'll see, are designed for that format. So I'll actually be reading a lot of the cards because some of them are reprints. I won't necessarily recognize all the reprints, but I'll talk about some of the new stuff, especially. So Enclave Elite, 2 and a blue. It's a multi-kicker with Island Walk. When he enters the battlefield, +1/+1 counter on it for each time it was kicked. Pillarfield Ox, that's pretty standard reprint. Plated Sea Strider, it's 2 blue for a 1/4. Cinder Walls reprint. Vent Sentinel, 3 and a red for a 2/4 defender with tap 1 and a red and tap Vent Sentinel. Vent Sentinel deals damage to target player equal to the number of creatures with defender you control. Plummet, Wake Dancer, Gnarled Pack, Stasis Cell, Tragic Slip got reprinted. It's a cool common. Spontaneous Combustion, I remember this card. As an additional cost to cast Spontaneous Combustion, sacrifice a creature. Spontaneous Combustion deals 3 damage to each creature, and it's 1, a black, and a red. Victimize, 2 and a black. Choose 2 target creature cards in your graveyard, sacrifice a creature. If you do, return the chosen cards to the battlefield tapped. Okay. Quicksand, and our rare is Altar of Dementia. It's 2-drop, sacrifice a creature. Target player puts a number of cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power from the top of his or her library into his or her graveyard. So that's, I assume, that signals that there's going to be some milling in Conspiracy. One thing I've noticed is, I'll talk about it a little bit later, there's incentive to attack the creature, not the creature, the player that's at your table with the highest life total. So milling is actually an interesting strategy if that mechanic is in play, because you can skirt around that. And here's a special new thing. This is a conspiracy. So a conspiracy is a special card that you don't actually put into your deck. You just start with it. So this conspiracy is called Backup Plan. Draw an additional hand of 7 cards as the game begins. Before taking mulligans, shuffle all but one of your hands into your library. Huh, that's interesting. So basically gives you a free mulligan, and the only drawback to it is you'll have to draft this, you know. So in other words, this can't be part of your 40 card deck. It's just a card that you have to pass on potentially something that's better than it, just, you know, for actual play. But and then we get a construct token. So those conspiracies are an interesting layer of strategy to this. I'm excited to see how that'll play out. A Johnny Sunstriker, Play Sea Strider, Pride Guardian, Mana Geyser. So a lot of these are reprints. This is a cool reprint to have. Sakura Tribe Elder, 1 and a green. Sacrifice Sakura Tribe Elder, search your library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. So on second turn you can bring out a little blocker, and then before third turn you can sack him and just have some free deck thinning slash ramp. There's nothing wrong with that. Stronghold Discipline, Howling Wolf, Nature's Claim, Rousing of Souls. This one's new. Rousing of Souls costs 2 and a white, and it's a sorcery, and it has the ability Parley. Parley is not like a straight up ability, it gets explained, but all Parley cards basically involve revealing cards from the top of every player's library. So each player reveals the top card of his or her library. For each non-land card revealed this way, you put a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying onto the battlefield. Then each player draws a card. So that's the basic template for Parley. Each player will reveal the top card of their library. For each non-land card revealed that way, you get something, and then every player draws a card. So, Flamewright, a red and a white for a human artificer, 1 and tap, put a 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature token with defender onto the battlefield. Tap and sacrifice a creature with defender. Flamewright deals 1 damage to target creature or player. So it's pretty cool. Relic Crush for green, destroy target artifact or enchantment, 1 other artifact or enchantment. Bite of the Black Rose. This showcases a new ability too. 3 and a black for a sorcery that reads Will of the Council. It's a new type of ability. Starting with you, each player votes for sickness or psychosis. If sickness gets more votes, creatures your opponents control get -2/-2 until end of turn. If psychosis gets more votes or the vote is tied, each opponent discards 2 cards. So that's a pretty not a great decision for your opponents to have to make. But Will of the Council is basically, it puts everything to a vote around the table, and you know, there's I've only seen 2 options, but whatever option gets chosen, it's usually beneficial for the card player. Ignition Team, 5 and 2 red, Goblin Warrior, 0/0, but it enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of tapped lands on the battlefield. 2 and a red, remove a +1/+1 counter from Ignition Team. Target land becomes a 4/4 red elemental creature until end of turn. It's still a land. This is pretty cool because it's it punishes an opponent that is hitting their curve and putting out lots of stuff. So you can potentially, like, let's say both you and your opponent have 7 lands, let's say you're neck and neck, then this would come out with 14 +1/+1 counters on it if he tapped out last turn. So that's an interesting bomb to drop. Because even at 14/14, even if you're not using that ability, obviously it's good to use that ability, because 4/4 red elemental creatures are, you know, have the potential to win the game for you, but it's very interesting. Cool rare. Muzio's Preparation. Muzio? I don't know. Muzio's Preparations. Conspiracy. Hidden agenda. So you start the game with this conspiracy face down in the command zone and secretly name a card. I'm going to assume that there's going to be little notes or something that you have to write that down on. You may turn this conspiracy face up anytime and reveal the chosen name. Each creature you control with the chosen name enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Okay, cool. And the squirrels are back. So there's 1/1 squirrel token. It's awesome. Let me get my rares out. My ignition team. Technically backup plan is a rare. Alter. Courier Hawk, Reckless Scholar, Custody Squire. So 4 and a white, it's a Spirit Cleric with flying. Will of the Council. When Custody Squire enters the battlefield, starting with you, each player votes for an artifact, creature, or enchantment card. Oh, so there's that is more than 2 options. Return each card with the most votes or tied for the most votes to your hand. That's pretty cool. So they have to decide what from your graveyard you get, which is interesting. Enraged Revolutionary. So here's a new ability: 2 and a red, and he has Dethrone. So whenever this creature attacks the player with the most life or tied for the most life, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So the moment it attacks, so during attack step, it would be a 3/2 on the first turn that it attacked the person with the most life, which means that if you wanted to keep pumping this up, if this was getting through and it was surviving, you would need to whittle down your opponents one at a time, which is interesting. I guess that means that if you have the most life, that you can't use Dethrone, though, because you would not be able to attack the player with the most life. Pitchburn Devils is a reprint. Unhallowed Pact. Echoing Courage. Nature's Flame. Wind Dancer. Volcanic Fallout. Peace Strider. Reign of the Pit. 4 and 2 black for a sorcery. Each player sacrifices a creature. Put an XX black demon creature token with flying onto the battlefield, where X is the total number or total power of the creature's sacrifice this way. That's interesting because they decide, your opponents will decide, that means how large your creature will be. Aether Searcher. This came with, oh, I see. This is special because you have to reveal it while you draft it. So it's a artifact creature with a cost of 7. Reveal Aether Searcher as you draft it. Reveal the next card you draft and note its name. When Aether Searcher enters the battlefield, you may search your hand and or library for a card with the name noted as you drafted cards named Aether Searcher. You may cast it without paying its mana cost. If you search your library this way, shuffle it. That's pretty crazy. Because if you end up getting, I mean, it would be tough to get more than 1 Aether Searcher because that's pretty good. But he basically acts as like, I mean, he's an expensive tutor, but he's a tutor that puts out a 6/4 and lets you cast it without paying its mana cost, and yeah, I mean, people aren't going to know it's coming. I guess the weird thing about these cards is that they require you to actually write stuff down, which usually doesn't happen in Magic. You usually, there's like an economy in Magic, an economy of record keeping where, you know, the most complicated it usually gets is something like the, remember in Innistrad where they had those checklist cards where you actually had to write on the card. But this is interesting because you need, I guess, like a sticky note or something to keep track of what cards are attached to your Aether Searcher or what card your Aether Searcher refers to. But if you got more than one Aether Searcher, you'd actually be able to have it get multiple cards and cast both of them without paying their mana costs. That's pretty crazy. And the Spirit token. Alright, this video is going to be really long if I don't go faster, so I'm going to just start skimming for the rares. But I wanted to get those special abilities taken care of. I think we've seen all of the specific... oh, cool. Here's my first Conspiracy Mythic. Hydra Omnivore, 4 and 2 green. It's a Hydra. Whenever Hydra Omnivore deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to each other opponent. And it's an 8/8. That's pretty scary. It's a multiplayer-centric ability. And here's a common Conspiracy card. For the purpose of keeping this video under an hour, I'm going to forge onward and just do the rares. But it's exciting because this is completely new to me as well as you. They just revealed a lot of these. They kind of kept a lot of these secret for a while without getting them leaked. So, Rhea Dawnbringer. She is legendary. She's an angel, 6 and 3 white. Wow, expensive. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And she's a 4/6. Well, that's pretty powerful because you're getting 2 creatures for 1. So there you go. Okay, Drakestown Forgotten. 4 and a black for a zombie. Drakestown Forgotten enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of creature cards in all graveyards. 2 and a black, remove a +1/+1 counter from Drakestown Forgotten. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. And it starts at 0/0. That's pretty good, I think. I think that's strong because the ability to shrink him to give -1/-1s. That I don't know if there's any indestructible stuff in this set, but it seems like it would ruin their day. Oh, Factor Fiction. That's pretty cool. And it's an uncommon. 3 and a blue. Instant, reveal the top 5 cards of your library. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles. Put one pile into your hand, the other into the graveyard. That is, that's a really good reprint. Man. Smallpox. Dimir Doppelgangers are rare. 1, a blue, and a black. And it's a shapeshifter. For 1, a blue and a black, exile target creature card from a graveyard. Dimir Doppelganger becomes a copy of that card and gains this ability. It starts off with 0/2 though. Yeah, that's in a multiplayer game. I could see that coming in handy because there's gonna be a lot of stuff dying, and you get your pick. It's cool. Vedalken Orrery for 4. You get an artifact that says you may cast non-land cards as though they had flash. That's very cool. Possibly a lot of interesting interactions with that. Seems to be a lot of sorceries in this set, so that could make some of them scary and unexpected. Unexpected except for the fact that you have an orrery out. So Grenzo's Rebuttal, 4 and 2 red for a sorcery. Put a 4/4 red ogre creature token onto the battlefield. Starting with you, each player chooses an artifact, a creature, a land, and a land from among the permanents controlled by the player to his or her left. Destroy each permanent chosen this way. Man, that's pretty nutty. So you you put out a 4/4 and then you just cause mass chaos destruction to happen. That's pretty fun. This has tinges of EDH to it, and I imagine a lot of these cards are going to be good in EDH, just because part of the fun of Commander is having weird board-wide interactions where people are, you know, causing mass havoc. Exploration, 1 green for an enchantment that reads, you may play an additional land on each of your turns. Cool. Green doing ramp, who'd have thought? Plea for Power, Will of the Council. So Plea for Power is 3 and a blue for a sorcery that reads, Will of the Council starting with you. Each player votes for time or knowledge. If time gets more votes, take an extra turn after this one. Not likely. If knowledge gets more votes, or if the vote is tied, draw 3 cards. That's much more likely. I would rather have, unless it was guaranteed to be a wasted turn, I'd rather have my enemy draw 3 cards and do something really scary with an extra turn. Swords to Plowshares, a really crazy reprint there. So that's foil version of it. For those of you for those of you who haven't seen Swords to Plowshares, it's white for an instant that reads, exile target creature, its controller gains life equal to its power. It's very strong. Yeah, I left my rare in that, huh? Okay. Silent Arbiter, 4 mana, artifact creature, construct. No more than 1 creature can attack each combat. No more than 1 creature can block each combat. And it's a 1/5. Interesting. Huh. Alright. Crookclaw Transmuter. That's, don't know why I'm reading comments, but Edric, Spymaster of Trest. 1, a green and a blue For a legendary, Elf Rogue. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, its controller may draw a card. So everything gets, you know, what is that called? Is that looting? Everybody's drawing cards in that situation. So I guess that would go along with like a milling strategy, to try and turn the fact that your opponents are getting cards into a disadvantage. Ill-Gotten Gains, 2 and 2 black, sorcery. Exile Ill-Gotten Gains. Each player discards his or her hand, then returns up to 3 cards from his or her graveyard to his or her hand. Ooh, that's... well, that sucks. That would be painful. Especially if you haven't played anything very good. Flickering Pool. It's a land. Tap to add 1 mana. Add to your mana pool 1 mana of any type that a land you control could produce. Oh, so just having, yeah, that's pretty useful way of mana fixing there. Council's Judgment. 1 and 2 white. For a sorcery, Will of the Council. Starting with you, each player votes for a non-land permanent you don't control. Exile each permanent with the most votes or tied for the most votes. Oof. Oh, that's pretty crazy. I guess you do that when there is in a multiplayer format. You do that when somebody has a big indestructible or difficult to take down creature that you don't control, and everybody pretty much agrees that that needs to go. Custody Soulbinders, 3 and a white for a human cleric. Custody Soulbinders enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of creatures on the battlefield. For 2 and a white, remove a +1/+1 counter from Custody Soulbinders to put a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying onto the battlefield. Interesting. So he pumps them out. I guess one of the things, you know, like I've noticed that there are some cards, or there's at least one card that can flash. Flash card, or not flash, flicker, whatever that's called, when you exile it and then bring it right back into play. And that would be useful with that, because that card is, I think, a rare, and it's a legendary creature. It's a white and blue, so that would pair well with that. Route 3 and 2 white. You may cast Route anytime. You could cast instant if you pay 2 more to cast it. Destroy all creatures. They can't be regenerated. Well, that's a pretty straightforward Wrath effect then. Cool. Very useful in a large, confusing, chaotic multiplayer format to just be able to wipe the board and have the option to do it as an instant for a very expensive cost. Oh man. Heartless Hidetsugu. I butchered that one. 3 and 2 red for legendary creature. Ogre Shaman. Tap. Heartless Hidetsugu deals damage to each player equal to half that player's life total rounded down. Ouch. I have a feeling he's a reprint from Kamigawa, but I'm a little ignorant to that particular card. However, that's painful. This is an interesting, the flavor of conspiracy is interesting because, you know, this says Grixis, and then I saw a Dimir card, so it's like, it has elements of shards, Kamigawa, and Ravnica, all bundle of Fires of Yavimaya, so it has Dominaria stuff too. Lore-wise, it's just got a little bit of everything. Another Reflecting Pool. Vampire Hexmage. That was a good uncommon. Mirrodin's Core. Oh, there's another reference. Oh, here's the one I was talking about. Brago, King Eternal. 2, a white and a blue for a legendary creature spirit. He has flying. He's a 2/4. When Brago, King Eternal, deals combat damage to a player, exile any number of target non-land permanents you control. So you can, it's not all of them, it's whichever one you choose. Then return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control. So that, like I was saying, with that Custody Soulbinders probably combos pretty well. Because you can keep plenty of +1/+1 counters on Soulbinders. And when you're about to run out, you can just flicker it. And the foil Sentinel Dispatch. Mirari's Wake. Oof. And it's a Mythic. 3 green and a white for an enchantment. Creatures you control gets +1/+1. Whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana to your mana pool of any type that land produced. So that's just a powerful banner and ramp effect. It's good. Oh, and another rare, Cogwork Grinder. 6 for an artifact creature construct. Draft Cogwork Grinder face up. As you draft a card, you may remove it from the draft face down. Those cards aren't in your card pool. Cogwork Grinder enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of cards you remove from the draft with cards named Cogwork Grinder. That seems really disruptive. Can you only do that to one card? Or no? That seems like you can do that to as many cards as you want. Can you just disrupt the draft with this guy? Huh. Well, I mean, yeah, everybody would get crappier decks, but you'd really be screwing yourself over the most if you did that continuously. That's very interesting. That's like that brings a new level to hate drafting. It's not only am I hate drafting this card, but I'm not even putting that into my card pool. Pretty funny. This one's cool. Bassandra Battle Seraph. 3 red and a white for a legendary creature. Flying. Players can't cast spells during combat. No tricks. Very, very Boros. I'm just gonna attack and not think about it. And then for a red mana, target creature attacks this turn if able. So you can. That's pretty powerful, especially in a limited format, to have a flyer that's compelling creatures to attack. I got a foil moment of heroism. Misdirection, 3 and 2 blue. For an instant, you may exile a blue card from your hand rather than pay Misdirection's mana cost. Change the target of target spell with a single target. That's pretty good. Especially because you don't need to pay that humongous cost there just to do that, but you can see that working out pretty well. Another Mythic, Pristine Angel, 4 and 2 white. For an angel, it's 4/4 with flying. As long as Pristine Angel is untapped, it has protection from artifacts and from all colors. Whenever you cast a spell, you may untap Pristine Angel. That is good. I don't know what else to say to that. Here's a foil Ill-Gotten Gains. It's kind of like Pristine Angel has hexproof, except you can make them, you can make them waste a spell, I guess, by tapping it and then having a spell in hand to untap it. Alright, Edric Spymaster again. I noticed that the gold, the multicolor cards, there are 10 multicolor cards, rares rather, in the set, and it's one for each guild basically. So there's some nice symmetry there, I guess. So it's not like it's encouraging one or another. And speak of the devil, here's one of the multicolor rares. Dax Duplicate, 2 blue and a red. It's a shapeshifter. You may have Dax Duplicate enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it gains haste and dethrone. Whenever it attacks, the player with the most life... Oh yeah, we already went over dethrone. But yeah. So then it stays in that form, I guess, so it's interesting. Speaking of DAC, I would not mind if these last few packs had a DAC Faden in it. Just saying. Always like Planeswalkers. Alright, Wolfbriar Elemental, 2 and 2 green. For an elemental with multi-kicker 1 green. When Wolfbriar Elemental enters the battlefield, put a 2/2 green wolf creature token onto the battlefield for each time it was kicked. And it's a 4/4. So that's pretty good because, you know, having it be, that's a fairly cheap multi-kicker. So you can just flood the board with wolves in the later game. I wonder how long games are going to go in this format. Because it is a multiplayer game, and I've noticed multiplayer games tend to go longer. Coercive Portal. Here's another Mythic. It's 4-drop artifact. Will of the Council. At the beginning of your upkeep, starting with you, each player votes for Carnage or Homage. If Carnage gets more votes, would you like Carnage or Homage? If Carnage gets more votes, sacrifice Coercive Portal and destroy all non-land permanents. If Homage gets more votes, or the vote is tied, draw a card. Well, that's a pretty stark contrast in voting. So people can vote. I guess the people behind are always going to be voting Carnage, and the people who are ahead are going to vote Homage. So as long as things stay fairly equal, people are just going to be drawing cards, or they could be nuking the board. Interesting. It's like geopolitics. Alright, Sulfuric Vortex. 1 and 2 red enchantment. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, Sulfuric Vortex deals 2 damage to that player. If a player would gain life, that player gains no life instead. Wow. I guess I'd cast that if I had some ways of ending the game quick. Oops. I haven't really seen a lot of life gain, but I guess I haven't really been focusing on the reprints. Well, I suppose that Sulfuric Vortex tied with Swords of Plowshare is just kind of, it's just a straight up exile. Magister of Worth, 4 and 1, 4 a white and a black. For a 4/4 angel of flying, Will of the Council. When Magister of Worth enters the battlefield, starting with you, each player votes for Grace or Condemnation. If Grace gets more votes, each player returns each creature card from his or her graveyard to the battlefield. If Condemnation gets more votes, or the vote is tied, destroy all creatures other than Magister of Worth. Huh. So that's another one that's, you either benefit everybody, or you the person behind is just going to be like, no, wipe the board. Except for the fact this one, with this one, the person who cast it still has a 4/4 flyer out, so that's pretty key difference there. Museo, Visionary Architect. 1 and 2 blue for a legendary creature, Human Artificer. 3 and a blue and tap him. Look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the highest converted mana cost among artifacts you control. You may reveal an artifact card from among them and put it onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Huh. That's pretty cool. I don't know how he is in this set, but I can think of some artifacts that I'd be searching for in other formats. Alright. Really down to the last few. Realm Seekers, 4 and 2 green for an Elf Scout. Realm Seekers enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the total number of cards in all players' hands. 2 and a blue, remove a +1/+1 counter from Realm Seekers, search your library for a land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Cool. It's a little expensive, but I guess if people are holding on to a lot of cards, he could get big. It's interesting that some of these cards will, in a 4-player game, like that would be a much bigger card than, or it would be a much bigger drop than in a 3-player game. Mirrodin's Core, Deathrender. 4-drop equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2. Whenever equipped creature dies, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield and attach Deathrender to it, and it's equipped to That's not bad at all. That's really good. I like that. It's cheating stuff into play with a +2/+2 on it. It's awesome. Especially if you have a way of like sacrificing a little token with Death Render attached to it, and you just drop like a big bomb creature. Okay, Rhea Dawnbringer. I already think I've seen this one. Yeah, it's the. That would be a cool thing to bring into play with Death Render. Right. Last pack. It's probably not DAC, but I would really appreciate it if it was. No, it's not. Council's Judgment. We already seen this, but I'll read it anyways. 1 and 2 white. Will of the Council. Starting with you, each player votes for a non-land permanent you don't control. Exile each permanent with the most votes, or tied for the most votes. Cool, guys. So I hope you enjoyed that. Conspiracy looks to be really fun. I'm having trouble I'm having trouble wrapping my head around it. You probably noticed I paused to just think about some of these things because it's a completely different format than what we're used to. And I mean, I really like draft, and there's a lot to absorb here. I mean, I was flipping past some cards. There's a lot of these plan cards that, you know, I'm very interested in, or plan conspiracy cards rather, that I'm really interested in, just because it seems like there's like one each pack, and well, maybe not every pack, but they're very common, and they that's like a whole other dimension to this form of Magic. So I anticipate this being pretty cool, and there's obviously a lot of cards in this set that are going to influence legacy play, just because there's reprints of stuff that goes into legacy, and then cards like Dak Faden are going to be showing up. I didn't get him, but he's a planeswalker and he's got some crazy abilities. So you should check that out. You can check that out on untapgames.com. You can also check out these boxes on untapgames.com. I'll put a link in the description. And I'd be interested to know what you guys think of the set. So leave that in the comments. And we are now having a Facebook contest for June, where all you need to do is you either like the post, or you can participate in like a little creative writing contest where you pitch us what you think would be a good card game based movie in the comments to the post on Facebook. So just go to facebook.com/untappedgames and check out that contest. The winner will either get $25 in store credit or half a booster box of Conspiracy. So it's worth going and checking out. So until next time, take care, guys, and thanks again. Take care.